Welcome back to my channel. I am your favorite news reporter, Bougie Vintage, and today's video is another Toronto true crime series. Today we're covering none other than Pressa Armani. Some of you may be familiar with him and some of you may not. Before we get into the video, I'm going to give you guys a little disclaimer, okay? Because a lot of time when I do this type of video, I get a lot of comments from people that are not necessarily subscribed. And those comments are usually from people from Toronto that think they know the case or that do know the cases that I'm covering, rebuttaling what I say. And so the disclaimer here is that I only report on what's been publicly posted to the internet already. I do not add new information. I do not remove information. I simply report on what's been reported by various news articles already. So if you don't agree with what I say, it ain't coming from me, chat. We're just here to say what's already been said. So without further ado, let's get right on into this video. So for this case in particular, I am taking you back to 2016. So not too long ago, but still a good amount of time has passed. So for this situation, I'm going to take you back to April 2016. So in the spring of April 2016, I believe the date is the 19th, fight had broken out between two rival gangs, according to the police. Usually, if the police is our only source, we have to question the facts. But for the purpose of this video, we're just going to go with what they said. So the two gangs that the police alleged had an altercation were the Queen Drive Crips and the Young Buck Killers. So the events that led up to the altercation itself are not really published, at least in nothing that I read. But what has been reported is that there was a shootout or a shooting at a condo downtown Toronto. And I guess with all the shell casings that were found at the scene of the crime, the police stated that there were 8 to 10 firearms present and a whole bunch of gunshots were heard, but nobody actually called the police. I thought that was really interesting because usually if there's a shooting, at least one person calls the police, but I guess this condo was Mind Your Business Ministries and they decided they're not calling the police or alerting the police that there was a shooting. Now, because of this shooting happening at a condo, there was elevator surveillance. The elevator surveillance video was released to the public, so I will insert it and you guys can see it for yourself. But you see that there was clearly two sets of people shooting at each other once the elevator doors open and the people that were in the elevator exit the elevator and make a left. You see that they slowly start to, not slowly, but quickly start to retreat back to either past the elevator or back into the elevator. And then you see a gunman walking past the elevator holding his gun ready to shoot into the elevator. Now, this was taking place on the 25th floor of this condo, so they were pretty high up. They ain't much place. You can't even take this. I am not taking 25 flights of stairs to get down if I'm being shot at. Okay, you just gonna have to kill me because I am too lazy. You are not about to. If I can't make it back into the elevator and the door closed before you get to shoot into the elevator, I'm probably gonna die on that floor. Okay, in the hallway. Now, during that altercation, once the elevator doors were closing back, there was only 2 people in the elevator. When originally, I can't remember, off the top of my head, I'm gonna say there was at least 5 people in the elevator when it had opened, but only 2 people made it back inside the elevator. The other people end up being unaccounted for. 2 of the people in the altercation, I'm not sure if those 2 people were in the elevator or if they were coming from the left side of the hallway. 2 of those people were 17-year-old boys, and that would make them minors. According to the police, they were kidnapped and held against their will. Now, the two people that were kidnapped were alleged to be associated with the Queen Drive Crips. And apparently they weren't just kidnapped and in one place. They were kidnapped and held against their will in multiple places around the city. I said, what in the Brotherhood of the Traveling Pants is this? Like, why are they moving the kidnapped victims? But I think it's possibly because people had realized that they were missing and had reported suspicious behavior, and so they had to move them from one location to another location. The police are really the only people that were speaking up when this was happening, and according to them, the victims were brutally beaten, which makes sense. If you're kidnapped, you're probably gonna get abused a bit. They were also forced to play Russian roulette. Of course, you can imagine how scary that must have been. Usually you play Russian roulette with a revolver. If you've ever seen a revolver in person, you can see where the bullet is. So technically, once you spin it, you're gonna know if you're gonna shoot yourself or not, because there's only one bullet in there. So if you spin it and you realize that the next time you pull the trigger, you're not gonna shoot yourself to death or the other person that you're aiming the gun at. It's still scary, but you kind of know your fate already with Russian roulette. That being said, this is where it gets a little weird. Apart from the already being beaten and forced to play Russian roulette, the two 17-year-old boys were also forced to perform sexual acts with each other or on each other. What the police had alleged was that these victims were tortured like this for 2 days before the people that kidnapped them started to demand ransom. Whenever I read a story like this, it always makes me sad, and I always think, like, what could have happened or didn't happen in a young man's life for him to end up engaging in such criminal activities? You know what I mean? Like, what is the reason that you would take this route? And I get it, some people are products of their environment, but like, I think unless you have, which a lot of people do actually struggle with having brain power, I guess. I think you know more or less when you are throwing your life away or possibly can be throwing your life away. It's like, where do you draw the line in terms of the crimes you commit, or, you know, what you're going to participate in, or, you know, if you grew up seeing it all around you, why did you decide that that's what you want for yourself? Because there's always options, you know, there's always more than one option. And I think it's important that people know that. Like, I think it's really important that young men know that growing up in impoverished areas, I feel like there should be more to help these people. And sometimes these people are given help, but they don't want it. And I've seen it for myself. I grew up in Malvern, so I've seen it. I've seen people throw their life away, whether they're freaking 13 or 28, you know, I've seen it. So it doesn't surprise me, it doesn't shock me, but I feel like there's just so much more that these people could do with their life instead of what they choose to do. And I don't say that to be judgmental, never that. I genuinely ponder that thought. I think it's important that young men seek the help that they need to better their lives. Try to hang out with people that aren't getting in trouble all the time. Even if it's your own family, distance yourself from certain people instead of following those paths because you think that that's the only way to make money or do XYZ, because there's already a target on your back as a young black man. No matter where you are in the world, literally, there's always going to be a target on your back. But especially here in North America, you already know that you've been placed in a box and told you're you're not gonna make it. You know, you're gonna be another you're gonna be another statistic, you know. But it's literally for you to have the knowledge and make the decision for yourself that no, I'm not gonna be another statistic. I hate that word, chap. I'm not gonna be just another nigga from my hood. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna make my own path. I'm gonna make my own rules. I don't have to do what I see my brother, cousin, and best friend doing, because At the end of the day, I know I'm talented, I'm worthy, I'm all these things, and there's so much more out there for me. And I don't mean rap and basketball, okay? Literally so much out. There's so many of these young men in the hood that are like tech geniuses, and they haven't tapped into their full potential because they haven't been afforded those opportunities. But they also haven't sought those opportunities. It's sometimes it just happens to be a teacher or a guidance counselor at the school that sees this person and they encourage them to do better, and they follow up with them and make sure that they stay on the right track. A lot of the times it's not like that, but it's for the person to decide what they want for themselves, and that's your responsibility as a human being, whether you're freaking 12 or 27. You know what I mean? It's not for somebody else to do it for you, because a lot of these homes that these people are coming from are broken, essentially, you know, and that makes it all the more hard. But where there's a will, there's definitely a way. Anyway, back to the story. Sorry guys, I got a little sidetracked there. Originally, there actually was no report of a kidnapping until the victims were located in a townhouse that was alleged to be associated with the young buck killers. Now, not before long, a 17-year-old boy, so somebody that's not even finished high school, was charged with kidnapping for ransom, possession of cocaine with the intention of distribution or trafficking, 3 counts of failure to comply with a Youth Criminal Justice Act recognizance, and not 1, not 2, but 3 firearms charges. So that's probably possession of a firearm, illegal possession of a firearm. As you know, you cannot obtain a gun license really here in Canada to just have on your waist. Okay, you cannot. Probably discharging the firearm. I'm just assuming here. I really don't know what the charges were, but there was about 3 firearm associated charges for a 17-year-old boy. Now, because this person was still a minor, they did not release his information to the media the same way they didn't release the victim's information. It's like, how are 2 17-year-old boys kidnapped by another 17-year-old? It's crazy to me. But obviously this is not a person that was working alone, and you know, lucky for him, because I don't think they tried him as an adult, but lucky for him, he committed the crime before adulthood, so he wouldn't get as harsh punishment, and he could still try to become a productive member of society once he would have served his time if the charges stuck. Apart from the 17-year-old that was charged, there were 4 other suspects that also were arrested. This is the thing about criminals. Usually people like this are not the brightest, you know, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed, the chippiest chocolate chip cookie in the jar, okay? Usually that's not the case, and that's why people end up getting caught when they do crimes like this, because it's just handled incorrectly. A lot of criminals think they're smarter than they are, and so they wind up in problems like this. But the ages of the people that were also charged were between the ages of 16 and 51. When I saw that, I said, child, 51? You are too old, sir. What are you doing? Like, what? 51? I could not imagine my dad, you know, or my dad's older than 51, but like, that's pretty much the age group that I could have. He could be my dad, you know. I couldn't imagine my father being associated with something like this. You're 51. Like, I was actually really genuinely stunned. I feel like the cap for street stuff, I feel like there should be a cap for street stuff. Like, you know, maybe not past, like, once you hit 30, you should probably be putting that stuff to rest. And I get it's hard to come out of that life, but we've seen it done before, so really there's no excuse. Like, I couldn't believe a 51-year-old is hanging out with 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and influencing them, and not being a wise person, you know, like encouraging them to do better, and not do you want to be like me? You know what I mean? He should have been encouraging them to get out of that life, but here he's being charged along with them. I was stunned, yeah. Now, according to the police, the kidnapping happened to send a message. What message? Girl, I don't know. Now, there was still one more suspect that was at large when this situation happened. They said that he was aged around 23, and they let the public know he is armed and dangerous, and and not to approach. If you see them, contact the police, yada yada yada, the typical. Now for me, one of the crazier details about this whole case is obviously the whole sexual assault thing. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm really not. I feel like if that is the kidnapper's MO, I would have to assume it's because that's what the kidnapper is secretly into. Now, being a part of a gang, obviously, homophobia is present, okay? That is not something that you would technically be into if you are a gang member, right? It's frowned down upon. So what I took this as is, though they were using it as a humiliation tactic, I really feel like they were telling on themselves. Why would a grown man that is not closeted enforce two 17-year-olds to perform sexual acts on each other and watch? Now, we don't know who out of all of the suspects involved in this case was the person that said do XYZ. We don't know who that was, but I definitely feel like it had to have been somebody that was perhaps older and somebody that was more so in charge, because whoever else was in the room when that was happening, if they were too scared to speak up, because there's obviously a chain of command in a gang, right? If they're too scared to speak up, then they are traumatized now by that too. They're not going to say that. People can't even sit through the gay scenes on Power, okay? Fast forward. Like, people can't even sit through the gay scenes on Power or on The Wire. Like, whatever show you're watching, a lot of people will fast forward through those scenes because it's not something they really want to see, Even the street scenes you might be fast forwarding through. But to sit there and watch fellatio or whatever happen in front of you when that's not what you signed up for, it's probably traumatizing. And if you are in that situation and the person that suggested that is your higher up, you're not going to be like, hey, chill. You're not going to say that, because they're going to tell you, shut the F up before I make you get on your knees too. Like, especially because we have people stemming from ages 16 to 51 there. A 16-year-old is not going to step to somebody. They're not going to do it. They're not going to say, just chill. Like, we've already beaten them. We've kidnapped them. We're trying to get this money. We don't really need them to perform sexual acts against each other. That's crazy. Now, this whole situation is messed up. But funny enough, if you go to Pressa's Wikipedia page, it's not there. It doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't even really mention, much about him. He's not a huge celebrity, but he is big enough. But his Wikipedia page states nothing about the case or his involvement, if any. I think that that's probably a business move. People probably have tried to add it to his Wikipedia, and his team probably takes it down, which they can do, rightfully so, because none of the articles that you will read about the situation actually mention Pressa by name until he gets exonerated, or he doesn't even really go to trial for it because of the preliminary hearing that was held. Pressa was held on bail for 18 months before, the case got thrown out. Well, his part of the case got thrown out. But after the 18 months, he was cleared of all kidnapping charges. That is also probably a part of the reason why, if you go to his Wikipedia page, it's not there, because technically he was found innocent. Now, when Pressa was on bail, his bail conditions actually allowed him to travel with none other than Drake. Drake loves the Toronto rappers, okay? Drake is a fangirl for the Toronto rappers, the local rappers. He loves them all, but it's so hard to tell if Drake genuinely loves these rappers or if it's because the rappers in Toronto, a lot of them are so bad, it's good. I don't know how to, explain that to you. Some of them, the music, you have to have a certain taste for it. I personally love it because I feel like it's it's in its own lane. You know, Toronto rap is a world of its own. There's some really good artists in Toronto. Do not get me wrong. There's some really good ones, but there's also some really bad ones. And it seems like the bad ones shoot to stardom first because they're so bad. It's good. It sounds crazy, I know, but that's kind of the category I would put Pressa in. Originally, I feel like a lot of them spend a lot of time on their craft and they perfect it, and they may start out pretty rocky, but they end up doing well. So as I was saying, the reason that Pressa's charges were thrown out at the preliminary hearing was because there wasn't much to base his conviction off of. The victim, so one of the 17-year-olds, his word was the only thing putting Pressa at the scene of the crime. The victim was not able to identify Pressa as the person that hit him over the head with a firearm. And that's basically why the judge was like, well, can't help you here, okay? What the victim had originally stated was that whoever hit him over the head, so already there's reasonable doubt, whoever is not good enough. He didn't say the person that hit me over the head was Pressa Armani. What he said was whoever hit him over the head looked like a rapper they once saw on YouTube that goes by the name of Pressa Armani. Now, based on geography, Pressa was allegedly associated with the gang that did the kidnapping. That's why he was automatically pinpointed as a suspect, and that's why it kind of looked like it made sense. Child, if you don't stop shoveling your driveway, I'm going to have to come out there. Oh, they can actually hear me. I'm dead. My window's open. Now he stopped. What I will say is that Pressa has a very distinct look, and his voice is extremely distinct. So, that's suspicious. That is pretty much what the victim had said, though. So the victim stated that he looked like Pressa, and that's all he said. But that is not enough to make charges stick. It's simply not. And whether Pressa was guilty or not, it didn't matter because the judge decided he's not guilty. He was essentially given a get out of jail free card for whatever reason. To me, he was given a chance to start over and do something with his life, which obviously he was already headed down the path of stardom because he had linked up with Drake and toured with Drake and, you know, was able to perform and open for Drake. People do not make it as rappers from Toronto, only lately. Before, all we had was Cardinal Official, and he barely made it out. He made it out by the skin of his teeth. We had Big Page, who kind of got screwed by Drake, but they probably forgiven each other by now. And we had Drake, okay? There's a lot of others, but let's talk about the people that matter, okay? These are the main ones. There's others that came before those, but these are the biggest stars that we have. Justin Bieber is not a rapper, and he is not from Toronto, so we can't even mention him. We now have other artists slowly emerging from Toronto. As you see, Canada has lots of hidden gems, lots of hidden talent, and we're only now getting afforded these opportunities. Savannah Ray, like all these artists just blossoming and blooming, and it's so nice to see. But we're talking about rappers. A lot of them obviously end up dead, right? Like Houdini died not too long ago. He was one of my favorite rappers from here. Freaking Bully. Like, these guys rise to a certain level of fame, and then somebody just comes and guns them down. It's crazy. Like Northside Benji's really good, but he's not dead. There's so many great artists from Toronto. And so Pressa got an opportunity to, you know, build a life for himself because he's one of those people who, if you read his story, you're like, oh, damn, he never got a real chance. Like, his father was sent to jail for murder when Pressa was like 5 weeks old. You know, he grew up in a single parent household and in a rough neighborhood. Like, that's a lot of people's story. Obviously, a lot of rappers have that same story, but they're obviously not all the same people. All he had was his older brother and his mom, and this is just the path of life that he ended up walking. So if you read his story or watch an interview, whatever, then you see, oh, very humble beginnings, but a lot of the time with situations like this, it goes one of two ways. They either end up being like their father or nothing like their father. And so in his case, he was kind of plagued by the choices his father had made prior to Pressa getting to grow up in a two-parent home. And obviously research shows that people that grow up in two-parent homes develop a lot better than people that are in single-parent homes, but it's not always the case. For Pressa, I feel like because his life started at a disadvantage, he was able to slip past this incident by the skin of his teeth, because had the victim said something else, had he guaranteed that it was Pressa there, who, by the way, has always maintained his innocence. If he had stated it was definitely this person and physically identified him and, didn't cast doubt on his own testimony, we might not be hearing from Pressa right now. But because the victim really couldn't identify him, Pressa is able to live another day, literally. Two of the other suspects that were involved with the case received 6 years and 9 years. And according to police, one of the victims actually only made it out alive because his mom ended up paying $3,000 of the $10,000 ransom that they had asked for. And this is kind of the part in the story where I was like, oh my God, that's it? Y'all kidnapped 2 people and only asked for $10,000. There's at least 5 suspects. Split that $10,000. That's $2,000 each. And you lost 9 years of your life, or 6 years of your life, over less than $2,000. Because the way the chain of command works, you wouldn't even split that money equally. So it's like 10,000, and maybe it was 10,000 per body. So 20,000 altogether, but even so, it's not enough. Like, if I'm gonna throw my life away for some money, it cannot be $2,000. You can literally make that in a month. It's not the same as making it in a day, but you can make that in a month. You can make that in 2 weeks. Hell, you can make that in 1 week, depending on what job you have. Like, there's so many opportunities to make real money. You could become a truck driver. They make actually good money. A freaking garbage man, like, work for the government. Go ahead and figure it out. Pick up a book. Look in the book, because that's where they hide stuff from people like us. Look in a book and read about what you need to know. And that's real. Now, I don't really know. Well, like, after watching a movie like, what's that movie with Justin Timberlake? Not Underdog. Oh my God, what's that movie called? I watched it so many times. And it's based on a true story. It's just like this. Alpha Dog. But yeah, what was I even saying? I was saying that it's like that situation where they kidnapped him, kidnapped the people, kidnapped the little boy, didn't really know what to do with him. They were going to just return him, but the person that was in charge had other plans and other things in mind, and so they ended up killing him. I feel like people don't, like, unless you plan a kidnapping because you are a parent or something, unless you plan a kidnapping, usually if a kidnapping is planned, it's generally not for ransom. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how I feel. I feel like they didn't intend to kidnap them, but then they decided they were going to, and because they didn't have a plan, they were like, frig, let's just try to make some money off of this, because what are we gonna do? Had they not done the ransom thing, they probably would have got off scot-free. But because they did the ransom thing, that's how they kind of wound up in this problem. Because what they had done was recorded the video of the sexual acts, and when they were calling the people's family members to say we need X amount of dollars, what they were planning on doing was releasing the footage. Apart from it being a humiliation thing, it was also used to try to get money. So they told one of the victim's mothers, allegedly, that if you do not pay the rest of the money, so $7,000, within the next 7 days, we're going to release the footage online. I have to add that the whole recording of the video and the sexual acting was completely unnecessary, because if you call a mother and you tell her, we have your 17-year-old child and we're not going to return him unless you give us $10,000, she's going to try to get her son back.
You don't have to record a sexual act and threaten to release it online in order to get the money. It's a little ridiculous. Like, the kidnapping was enough, you know?
Obviously, this mother is scared. She does not want her child to be seen like that, and she wants her baby back home. You know, she's gonna pay the $3,000. Well, she already paid the $3,000, but she was working with the police at the same time so that they could figure this out. My whole thought was, well, where did she send the money to? Like, did they tell her to leave it in a mailbox? Like, what? How did they get the money? Like, that's what I mean by these, like, what was the plan? She wire transfers it to somebody that's associated with you. You're going to get caught because now we know exactly who you are. So it couldn't have been a wire transfer. Obviously, it has to be cash. Either which way, nobody is going to get to spend this money because you have to know that even if you tell the person on the phone, do not go to the police, they go into the police, okay? Like, you can only be so scared. A person is only going to be so scared if they get that kind of phone call. If you start telling me you want money and you have my child, you're either going to kill my child or you're not, you know? And no matter what, I'm going to have to call the police at some time. So if somebody gets that phone call, you have to automatically assume as the criminal that they're going to call the police despite that you told them not to. As we all know, talking to the police, if you are involved in that type of life, is against street code. You are not supposed to snitch. So one of the victims was originally working with the police, but then opted out because they stated that they weren't going to snitch. And to be honest, I don't really blame him because look at the situation I covered with Mayhem. Look at how the police deal with you once you rat. So no matter what, you're kind of screwed. You should just let them do their job if that is, you know, the life that you had chosen. But it's like, hopefully after a situation like that, you opt out of that life. At 17, your brain is not even fully developed, right? So imagine being 17 and going through something like that. It's extremely traumatic. Unfortunately for that victim that decided to no longer cooperate, the police had already corroborated what he had told them to the evidence, physical evidence that was present. And so even though he wasn't cooperating, he had already said too much. But I guess if you don't take it to trial, if you don't go on the stand and talk, then are you still considered a snitch? Probably. I don't know. Now, obviously the police are just there to do two things: collect a check, and if their job gets done in the midst of it, that's what happens. Because of Pressa's relaxed bail conditions, allowing him to travel and stuff, the police were hating. They didn't want him to be able to do those things, so they had opposed it originally, and Pressa and his lawyer were upset about it. Now, fast forward a few years later, Pressa and Coi Leray hook up, they link up, and now they're a couple. And a lot of people who didn't know Pressa thought that Pressa was a woman because he is beautiful, I guess. He's not handsome, he's beautiful. Like, he has feminine features or softer features, and of course his hair is long and stuff, and so Americans that didn't really know him were saying that he looks like a lesbian, but he is indeed a male and born male. Like I said, he always maintained his innocence. This is a great example of why it's important to be careful of the decisions that you make. You're probably like, Bo, why do you keep wearing hats? Because I didn't cut the lace off my wig. Look cute, don't it? It's giving Janet Jackson. Anyway, what was I saying, child? I feel like Pressa's story is the perfect example of watch the company you keep. Be mindful of the decisions that you make, because you're literally always one decision away from either prospering or ruining your life. Always. And I feel like that's the situation with Pressa, because whether he was found guilty or not, his name will forever be associated with this incident. And the incident is messed up. You know, it's a horrible thing that happened. And now when you Google Pressa, even if you Google him and his accomplishments pop up, there's always going to be something about these two 17-year-old boys that were kidnapped brutally beaten, and had to perform sexual assaults. And it's always going to be associated with Pressa, even if it's on his Wikipedia page or not. You know what I mean? And so this is the perfect example to just be mindful and to know yourself, and to thine own self be true, you know, and to find a different path to walk down. Thank God now he's doing his own thing. He's become successful in what he's doing, and he's continuing to push forward. But so many of these rappers that come out of Toronto have this same exact story. The crime might be different, but like they're really out here doing what they're rapping about, and they don't have to. This is what sells. I saw a post the other day about how this guy's friend, who's a woman, told him that in order to listen to rap music, she kind of has to disassociate or like turn off something internally. And I relate with that 100%, because if you listen to rap music, it is a very negative genre of music. Women are constantly degraded in rap. A lot of things that are faux pas are presented, but I mean, personally, I like to whip bricks in my head, so I like rap music. I like listening to it. But when you realize that a lot of the stuff that these people are rapping is actual factuals, it's kind of like a hurtful genre per se. But it's never gonna die, you know. It is what it is. It is the culture. And despite that it is the culture, I feel like everyone should disassociate. I feel like everyone should feel like, yes, I like rap music, but I don't want to live the lifestyle of a rapper, you know what I mean? Or the style that they're portraying. Because even Future, who is a great example to use actually, the stuff he raps about, aside from women, he has openly said he doesn't do the drugs he's rapping about. He's a sober person, but the people that listen to him are easily influenced to go out and try those things. He doesn't drink lean, but he still will sing about it. And so he himself as a rapper has disassociated himself. He may have started out doing those things, but he stopped because he realized the effect it's having. But then even though he's in an interview stating this, he's not putting it now in his music. He's still continuing to sing what sells, and that's pretty much how rap goes. You sing what sells. Female artists a lot of the time are rapping about their box and what a nigga will do for them, XYZ, you know. That's because that's what sells. And their music videos are super raunchy and provocative and overly sexualized, and it kind of gets old, but that's what sells. For the males, it's drugs, it's gun violence. Like NBA Youngboy is like one of the highest, I think he might be the highest viewed rapper on YouTube, and that's what the music glorifies essentially. That being said, I think it's important for parents to be monitoring what their kids listen to, what their kids are doing, you know, being active parents. And I get it, as a parent, I know it's not easy to always be there every waking minute of the day. They're going to be exposed to some stuff eventually when they go to school, in the hallways with their friends. They're going to be exposed to certain things, but it's for you as a parent to step in where they are being exposed and say, I understand that you think that's glamorous, but I'm gonna have you read this book so you know exactly how it's not glamorous. I'm gonna have you watch this documentary to show you how much it's not glamorous. You know, most criminals don't get away with their crimes unscathed. You know, we have a few people that have successfully committed crimes and gotten away with it, but few and far in between. You got to be really smart. You know, you can't be a dumb criminal and think you're going to get away with stuff and live a life of luxury with the money that you've earned doing foul things. None of this, well, I'm not even going to say that this is neither here nor there, because it really is all right here. That being said, it's definitely important to watch the company you keep and know that there's not only one path. When you are from the hood, growing up in poverty, even if you're from the freaking suburbs and you are, and this type of thing appeals to you, it's not all glitz and glamour, you know? And what do you want to pop up when people Google you in 10 years? Do you want it to be, is a successful tech billionaire? Do you want it to be, is a philanthropist? Or do you want it to be, was accused of XYZ, was accused of sexual assault, was accused of trafficking drugs, and spent 20 years in jail? What do you want to be? What do you want your legacy to be? You know, what do you want to leave behind? Do you want it to just be negative? Or do you want to do something to change what's going on in the earth? And so basically that's it for this episode of Toronto True Crime. I don't know when I'll be posting another one. I've been asked to cover Jay Noble's story. If you guys have stories you want me to cover, put them in the comment section below. Don't know when I'm going to get to them because realistically, I've just been posting wherever. Okay? I've been posting like Shakira. So I don't know when I'll be back with another one of these, but I definitely love to engage with you guys. So let me know in the comment section below. I love you all so much, and I'll definitely see you in the next one. Almost forgot to mention, Deadbeat & Co. is officially back. The website is www.deadbeatandco.square.site. And lots of new goodies coming. I'm super duper excited. Obviously, this top will be available soon, but in different colorways because I'm working on something that's super sustainable and like I'm doing a lot of upcycling. I actually ended up going back to school to do this, so I'm super duper excited to get my new designs out there because my original Deadbeat & Co. was so very basic. You know, not basic, girl. It was so basic. Although I loved what I was coming up with, I didn't have the skills to design properly. You know, I only could modify patterns. But now, your girl knows how to draft a pattern from scratch, take that pattern, and flip it and reverse it into everything and anything that I want to make it into. And that's how this little top came about. So this will be available soon. But right now on my site, there are horoscope shirts, airbrush designs, so very Y2K vibe. And I did everything myself by hand. Every one of the graphics. I did not pay somebody to do the graphics for me. I did the graphics myself, and I'm super duper proud of them. I'll insert some so you can see. So I did all of the astrological signs, and they all got their own color. They all got their own layout, like everything. It took me a few days actually to get all of them done. I worked on it and got the t-shirts up on the site, so you can order if you'd like. I know all the Astrala tea lovers probably want me to bring Astrala tea back after showing you guys these shirts, and maybe I will, maybe I won't, but there are shirts too if you're not into that kind of stuff. There are shirts that are just Deadbeat & Co. airbrush logo or airbrush design. So yeah, everything was done by hand. I'm really like super hands-on with anything that I do, from nails, hello. They are definitely giving. I'm always super duper hands-on when there's anything that involves art. That's up my alley, and so I have relaunched Deadbeat & Co. and I'm super duper excited to share that with you because when I had it originally, you guys supported me and have still asked me to this day, when is it coming back? And so now it's back. My original designs will be on the site soon. I cannot give you an exact date because I had to literally sit and draft every pattern by myself. So I used a standard measurement chart from my school book, and I had to make every different size, and then I had to transform the patterns that I made from the basic blocks. So that's what I've been working on. In the coming weeks, you will see my actual designs and not just t-shirts. Like, this is not merch, okay? I love you all so much, and I will definitely see you in the next one.